Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Common English Mistakes. Don't just learn, improve. So recently, with a couple of my classes, we've been studying crime and vocabulary relating to crime. We're going to look at the specific verb which collocates with the word crime and also different crimes, and an article mistake which we've looked at in other videos but is always good to review. We'll also look at specific verbs and phrasal verbs we use at different stages of the justice system or process. The word families of different crime, so the verbs and names for the criminals. And I've got a fun activity to practice these. Last thing to say, this won't include crimes involving stealing, because I've already covered that in another video. The link will be available at the end of this one. So anyway, the sentence up here has a couple of mistakes. See if you can correct them both. And well done. If you said, if you commit a crime, you should go to prison. So firstly, you always want to use the verb commit with the noun crime. They collocate and sound best together, and that's what you want to use. We also use this with specific crimes. People who commit murder go to prison for a long time, or you might say the banker committed fraud. And then in the second part, we use definite article the with prison when we're talking about the building or place. So for example, the prison in my city is very big. But when we're talking about the idea of having no freedom, you're going to use it with zero article as part of a phrase. Go to prison, like that example sentence, or my friend committed a crime and he is in prison. It's the same for school, university, and hospital. Go to school, go to university, the idea of getting an education. Go to hospital if you need medical attention. So let's now look at some verbs and phrasal verbs to talk about stages in the justice system. If the police catch you, detain and hold you, usually at a police station, use the verb arrest someone. As we're going to see, often you're going to use this in the passive, be or get arrested. And to talk about why, what the crime is, arrest someone for something, be get arrested for something. And then depending on the situation, a few different things might happen. If there isn't any evidence, the police might let the person go. Again, in the passive, the person might be or get let go, meaning be released. Similar to that is to let someone off. Again, in the passive, be or get let off, which just means to not punish someone. This might be because, like the example sentence, it's the person's first offense. Offense being a more formal, technical word for a crime. Often you're going to use this with a warning, basically saying, don't do that again, or with a fine, a small amount of money to pay. If these things don't happen though, the next step is to charge someone, or again in the passive, be charged. Again, using with something to talk about the crime. This means to officially accuse someone of a crime within the justice system. As it's getting a bit more formal, I've removed get charged with, as get is usually a bit more informal. This is also a noun, a charge. For example, Trump is facing several charges at the moment. Then the next step, the person who is charged with the crime goes to court, the place, has a trial, the event, and then either the court, place, institution, the judge, person running the court, or the jury, members of the public, find the person innocent or guilty of that crime. Or again, in the passive, be found innocent or guilty. The more technical term To find someone guilty is to convict. You could say a court convicts a person of something. Really, though, I think you would mostly hear this in the passive. Certainly, when I was researching, most of the examples were like this. So, she was convicted of murder. And then the final stage, if the person is found guilty or convicted, court or judge will sentence that person, or again in the passive, the person will be sentenced to talk about the punishment they receive. Typically, this is going to be prison. The judge sentenced her to 20 years in prison, or something like community service. He was sentenced to 12 months community service. So hopefully that's useful for you. Obviously, there's going to be more language there, but I think it's a good overview. Let's now go back to that collocation, commit a crime or commit a specific crime. Just look at this sentence here and think why this might be a bit of an unnatural thing to say in everyday conversation. Someone committed vandalism in the playground. And well done. If you said commit a crime, commit vandalism is quite a formal thing to say. So it sounds a bit strange in everyday conversation. Here, we want to use the verb to vandalize with an S, British spelling, with a Z, American spelling. So, for example, someone vandalized the playground. So we have vandalism, a crime, to intentionally destroy or damage property. Vandalize, here with the British spelling, S, and that's what I'm going to continue with. And technically, the criminal is called a vandal, although I really don't hear this word so much. So I'm briefly going to take you through some crimes, their meanings, and anything specific you need to know with either the verbs we use or the term for the criminal. The whole table is available in the description. If you just want to study that and skip ahead to the exercise, that's also fine. So first up, we have murder, which I'm sure you already know from films, TV, etc. But it's worth pointing out the difference between that and manslaughter. Murder, when you intentionally kill someone, maybe with a gun, whereas manslaughter, this isn't intentional. Maybe you kill someone with your car. In terms of the verbs we use, with murder, you can use either to murder or to kill, whereas with manslaughter, you would just use the verb to kill. The person who commits murder is called a murderer, and I really would say there isn't a term for someone who commits manslaughter. Next up, we have kidnapping, when you take a person by force and usually ask for something in return for their release, like money or for someone to do something. Just to point out here, this doesn't need to be and usually isn't taking a child. It applies to any person. Then arson is deliberately setting fire to either property, like a house or a building, or to just things. A lot of forest fires are started by arson. Next one, assault is anything where someone physically attacks someone. The verb, the same, to assault someone. The criminal is called an assailant. This is a very formal term though. In an everyday situation, you're probably just going to call them an attacker. And then quite a sad one, domestic violence is violence or abuse which takes place within the home. Verbs either going to be assault or abuse, and the person is going to be called an abuser or a domestic abuser. And then one which is quite common on the internet these days, scamming, tricking or deceiving people for money. Then blackmail, demanding money or something else for not revealing damaging information about someone or something. Maybe a celebrity has an embarrassing photo and the person says, give me money or I'll release the photo. Then drug dealing, illegally selling or distributing illegal drugs like cocaine, heroin, etc. This is different to drug smuggling. Smuggling, illegally moving things in and out of a country, either drugs, specifically drug smuggling, but also things like tobacco and alcohol to avoid paying tax. Then fraud, deception for either financial or personal gain. It's quite a general term. I'd always think about it being written to do with records. So, for example, you could commit fraud in a company, changing the accounts, etc., for some sort of financial gain. Or you talk about election fraud, where the election is changed in some way for someone's personal gain. And then embezzlement is stealing money, which is not yours, but that you are responsible for, probably from within an organization. So embezzlement of company money, or maybe embezzlement in a charity is quite common. And then money laundering is concealing or hiding the origins of illegally obtained money, basically cleaning it from illegal money to legal money. And then finally, bribery, anything which involves either giving or receiving money to do something else. Always think of this briefcase here full of lots of money, probably involves a bribe. The verb to bribe someone when you give the money, or to receive a bribe when you receive the money to do the action. So those are obviously not all, but a few crimes which are going to be quite useful for you. Now we're going to do a bit of practice and improve using activity I've been doing in lessons and which has worked quite nicely. I'm going to say a sentence describing a crime, and you're going to complete these 3 sentences here with the criminal, verb in the past participle or V3, and the name of the crime. So for example, if I say, I shot someone, you're going to say, I can't believe you're a murderer. How could you have murdered someone? You'll go to prison for murder. So look at these 5 sentences here. Think what the crime is. Look at the table in the description if you have to. And then you're going to complete those 3 sentences to talk about each crime. And well done for the first one. If when I said, I sold some marijuana, you go, I can't believe you're a drug dealer. How could you have dealt drugs? You'll go to prison for drug dealing. Then I set fire to a building. You say, I can't believe you're an arsonist. How could you have set fire to a building? You'll go to prison for arson. Then I sold fake tickets to someone. I can't believe you're a scammer. How could you have scammed someone? You'll go to prison for scamming. Then I brought back 20,000 cheap cigarettes from another country. I can't believe you're a smuggler. How could you have smuggled cigarettes? You'll go to prison for smuggling. Then I've been processing cash for a drug gang in my shop. I can't believe you're a money launderer. How could you have laundered money? You'll go to prison for money laundering. So hopefully that was useful for you. And now you're going to remember those crimes, the verbs, and the criminals a bit better. I was going to say describe a crime in the description, and we can do the same. However, it's probably best if we don't say these things on the internet and get the police looking at us. So today's question is just which crimes from this list are common in your country. So describe it in the description. Try to use the verb criminal in your answer to practice the language. Anyway, I hope that was useful for you guys. As ever, if you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, share the video with others, help this channel grow. It would be much appreciated. Other than that, I'll see you for another video in the next few days. So until next time, see ya.